Single-mindedness begins quietly, not with force, not with noise, but with a simple decision to choose one direction and walk it fully. In Japanese philosophy, clarity is born when the mind stops scattering itself across many fears, many desires, many imagined futures. Fear grows when attention is divided. Strength grows when attention is unified. A samurai stepping onto the battlefield did not think of victory or defeat. He focused only on his stance, his breath, his blade. The moment he allowed his mind to jump ahead, fear entered. The moment he returned to the present, fear dissolved into action. Miyamoto Musashi once reflected that confusion is born when the mind clings to many things at once. Single-mindedness is not obsession. It is commitment without anxiety. This commitment is gentle yet firm, like water flowing in one direction without resistance. When the mind chooses one path, it stops arguing with itself, and that inner silence becomes strength. Fear often comes from imagining many possible endings, most of which never arrive. When attention is pulled back into what is directly in front of us, the imagined future loses authority. In everyday life, this can be seen when someone hesitates to begin a task because they worry about failing, being judged, or wasting time. The task itself is simple, but the mind turns it into a battlefield of possibilities. Japanese thought reminds us that action becomes clean when the mind stops negotiating with outcomes. The present moment is the only place where effort is real. A sword held with doubt trembles, but a sword held with full attention becomes steady. Single-mindedness trains the mind to stay where the body already is. This does not mean ignoring responsibility or consequences. It means trusting that clear effort now is the best response to uncertainty later. When focus narrows, energy stops leaking. The heart slows down, the breath deepens, and fear no longer feels like a threat, but like a signal calling for presence. In this state, courage is not forced, it appears naturally. Even small actions gain weight and meaning. Washing dishes, writing a page, speaking a difficult truth, all become acts of discipline rather than emotional struggle. Practical takeaway. Today, choose one task, one intention, and give it your full attention for a short, defined time. Let everything else wait. Notice how fear loses its grip when the mind stops wandering, and how calm strength quietly takes its place. Fear often has little to do with effort and everything to do with outcomes. We fear failure, judgment, loss, or even success itself. Japanese philosophy teaches that attachment to outcomes clouds action, because the mind leaves the present and begins negotiating with the future. When the result becomes the focus, the present moment weakens, and effort loses its natural rhythm. A Zen archer releases the arrow without forcing the target. His role is not to control where the arrow lands, but to align posture, breath, and timing with care. When attachment to hitting the target disappears, precision naturally improves because tension dissolves. The archer trusts the process rather than chasing certainty. In daily life, outcome attachment shows up when we delay starting until we feel guaranteed success. We plan endlessly, rehearse conversations, and imagine reactions, believing preparation will remove fear. Instead, fear grows stronger, fed by imagination. Japanese thinkers observed that fear survives on bargaining. Yamamoto Tsunetomo, the author of Hagakure, suggested that clarity comes when one accepts both success and failure as equal teachers. The warrior acts fully, without bargaining with the future, because bargaining divides the mind. When effort is offered cleanly, without demand, action becomes lighter and more direct. Detachment from outcomes does not mean indifference. It means caring deeply about the effort while releasing control over the result. A farmer plants seeds without arguing with the sky. He prepares the soil, waters regularly, and accepts that growth follows its own timing. This mindset transforms fear into patience. When outcomes are released, mistakes lose their sting and become information rather than judgment. Progress becomes possible because attention returns to what can actually be done now. The body relaxes, breath steadies, and movement feels less forced. This is why Japanese philosophy values right action over right results. Results change, but disciplined effort remains available in every moment. When you stop demanding a specific ending, fear loses its leverage, because it no longer has a future to threaten. Practical takeaway. Before starting something today, quietly say, "I will give my best effort," and I release the result. Feel how this simple shift softens fear, clears the mind, and sharpens focus, allowing action to flow without resistance. This practice trains patience over time and builds quiet confidence through repetition. Each attempt becomes lighter, and hesitation slowly fades. Fear may still appear, but it no longer controls direction or speed. By returning attention to effort again and again, the mind learns stability. Detachment turns work into practice, practice into skill, and skill into calm presence, even when conditions remain uncertain. With steady focus, purpose replaces worry, and movement continues forward despite uncertainty. Clarity grows where attention stays, without fear dominating thought. Ego asks, "How will this make me look?" Single-mindedness asks, "What must be done now?" Fear thrives when ego dominates, because ego is fragile and constantly seeking protection. In Japanese philosophy, ego is seen as a restless mirror, always checking reflections instead of reality. When attention turns inward toward image and approval, action becomes hesitant and heavy. A craftsman in old Japan did not sign his work for praise. He worked to honor the craft itself, trusting that sincerity mattered more than recognition. When ego steps aside, fear no longer needs defending, because there is nothing personal at stake. The hands move freely, and the mind stays close to the task. Musashi wrote that one must not cling to reputation, because reputation distracts the warrior from the moment. Ego divides attention, purpose unifies it. This division is subtle. It appears as overthinking, self-judgment, and comparison with others. The mind becomes crowded with imagined observers, and fear grows louder. When ego loosens, attention returns to simple execution. Consider speaking in a meeting. Fear often comes not from the words themselves, but from imagined reactions. The ego asks how those words will land, how they will define status. Single-mindedness ignores the audience and focuses on clarity of expression. In that shift, the voice steadies. Japanese Zen practice often emphasizes disappearing into the action. When sweeping a floor, one becomes the sweep, not the sweeper. This quiet disappearance removes the need to protect identity. Fear fades because nothing is being defended. Ego also clings to being right. When challenged, fear surfaces as resistance. Letting go of ego allows learning to replace defensiveness. Progress accelerates because energy is no longer wasted on self-image. This does not mean becoming passive or invisible. It means letting purpose lead instead of pride. The strongest warriors were not those obsessed with honor displays, but those committed to effective action. When ego softens, mistakes become lessons instead of threats. Movement becomes smoother, and courage feels natural rather than forced. Practical takeaway. When hesitation appears, ask yourself, is this fear about the task or about how I want to be seen? Redirect attention to the task itself. Bring awareness back to the hands, the breath, the next small action. In doing so, ego quiets, fear loosens, and single-minded focus returns, allowing effort to flow without unnecessary tension or delay. With repeated practice, this shift becomes easier, and the mind learns to rest on purpose rather than self-defense, creating steady confidence that endures pressure, criticism, and uncertainty, while daily effort feels lighter, clearer, and more honest. Guided by presence instead of fear, and commitment remains strong during challenges and growth, without seeking validation or approval from others over time, consistently applied. Fear intensifies when we expect things to last forever, whether comfort, relationships, success, or certainty. Japanese philosophy embraces impermanence not as loss, but as truth, teaching that clinging to permanence creates suffering. When the mind believes something must remain unchanged, fear appears the moment change threatens it. Cherry blossoms are admired precisely because they fall. Their beauty is sharpened by their briefness, reminding us that value does not require permanence. The samurai understood that life, like blossoms, is fleeting, and that awareness created urgency, not despair. Knowing life could end at any moment sharpened presence and commitment. Zen teachings remind us that nothing is fixed, and therefore nothing must be feared permanently. Fear feels overwhelming only when we believe it will last. When impermanence is accepted, fear becomes a passing experience rather than a defining condition. In daily life, much anxiety comes from trying to freeze moments, roles, or identities. We want stability in emotions, certainty in plans, and guarantees in relationships. Japanese thought suggests that this resistance to change drains energy. When change is accepted as natural, attention returns to what can be done now. Consider losing a job or ending a relationship. Fear grows when the mind imagines permanent damage. But when impermanence is remembered, the event becomes a transition rather than an ending. The samurai trained knowing armor would rust, bodies would age, and victories would fade. This did not weaken resolve, it strengthened discipline. Every action mattered more because time was limited. Impermanence transforms fear into focus. It encourages action without delay and appreciation without clinging. Zen practice often uses breath as a reminder. Each inhale arises, each exhale disappears. Nothing is held. Yet life continues smoothly. When fear arises, it behaves the same way, appearing, peaking, and fading if not resisted. Treating fear as permanent feeds panic. Treating it as temporary allows patience. This mindset builds resilience because the mind no longer reacts as if every discomfort defines the future. Practical takeaway: when fear arises, remind yourself, this moment will change. Treat fear as temporary weather, not a permanent condition. Breathe, stay present, and continue moving forward. Over time, this practice teaches emotional balance. Courage grows not from controlling life, but from trusting its constant movement, allowing strength to emerge naturally within uncertainty. This understanding softens attachment to comfort and identity, making the heart flexible. When flexibility replaces resistance, fear has less surface to grip. Impermanence invites humility and gratitude together, because each moment becomes unrepeatable. Living with this awareness encourages kindness, decisive action, and calm endurance, helping the mind remain steady even when circumstances shift unexpectedly, reminding us that change is not an enemy, but the rhythm that carries growth forward with quiet confidence. Single-mindedness does not require confidence. It requires movement. Fear often demands guarantees before action, but Japanese philosophy teaches that certainty is discovered through action, not before it. Confidence is usually the result of movement, not the condition for it. A warrior did not wait until fear disappeared. He moved while fear was present, understanding that stillness fed doubt. In motion, fear transformed into awareness, sharpening senses instead of weakening resolve. Musashi emphasized that waiting for perfect conditions is a form of delay disguised as wisdom. The mind creates reasons to pause, calling them preparation, while life quietly passes. Japanese thought encourages beginning with what is available now. Even an imperfect step breaks hesitation and restores flow. In everyday life, this appears when someone delays starting a project until motivation arrives. Days pass, fear grows, and the task becomes heavier. Action interrupts this cycle. The moment the body moves, the mind follows. Fear loses authority because attention shifts from imagination to experience. Movement grounds awareness in reality. A single step, however small, creates feedback, and feedback creates learning. This is why training halls valued repetition over inspiration. Practice was movement repeated daily, regardless of mood. Through movement, the body learns courage before the mind understands it. Certainty emerges gradually, shaped by experience rather than thought. This philosophy teaches trust in the process of doing. When action becomes primary, fear becomes secondary. Hesitation fades not because fear vanishes, but because momentum carries attention forward. Each step reduces the unknown. Even mistakes become useful because they guide adjustment. Stillness, without intention, allows fear to narrate the future. Movement interrupts that story. It brings the mind back to the present, where effort is possible. Japanese discipline respects small beginnings, knowing they accumulate into mastery. A sword is sharpened stroke by stroke, not in a single motion. Likewise, courage is built through repeated action, not mental rehearsal. Practical takeaway. Take one small step today, without waiting to feel ready. Let action generate clarity instead of demanding it. Choose movement over overthinking. Notice how fear changes shape when you move alongside it. Over time, this practice trains decisiveness. The mind learns that uncertainty is not a stop sign, but a signal to engage. Strength grows quietly through motion, and single-minded focus deepens as action replaces delay, allowing purpose to guide each step forward with calm persistence. This approach builds trust in oneself, reduces hesitation over time, and creates a steady rhythm of effort that outlasts emotion, proving that movement itself becomes a teacher, shaping clarity, resilience, and inner strength through repeated engagement with uncertainty until fear no longer controls decisions and purposeful action feels natural even in challenging moments, without seeking certainty beforehand or external approval. Motivation is emotional and unstable. Discipline is quiet and reliable. Single-mindedness is sustained by discipline, not excitement. Japanese philosophy understands that emotions rise and fall like waves, while discipline creates a steady current beneath them. A monk wakes before sunrise to meditate, not because he feels inspired, but because the practice shapes his mind. Over time, fear loses its voice because routine steadies the nervous system. When actions become predictable, the mind stops negotiating and simply participates. Zen philosophy values daily repetition because consistency dissolves inner resistance. Repetition teaches the body to move even when the mind hesitates. In modern life, many people wait to feel motivated before acting, believing energy must come first. Discipline reverses this order. Action comes first and energy follows. This shift is powerful because fear often hides inside hesitation. When a task is scheduled and repeated, fear has less room to speak. The act becomes normal rather than dramatic. A monk sweeping the floor does not question the meaning of each movement. He sweeps because sweeping is part of the path. This attitude transforms effort into stability. Discipline also protects attention. By deciding in advance when and how something will be done, the mind is freed from constant choice. Fewer decisions mean less mental fatigue and less anxiety. The samurai trained daily not to seek excitement, but to remove hesitation from the body. When danger appeared, the body responded automatically, without panic. Discipline builds the same reliability in everyday life. Writing, studying, exercising, or learning a skill becomes easier when done at the same time each day. Fear weakens because the activity no longer feels threatening or uncertain. Zen practice shows that small actions, repeated faithfully, reshape identity. You become someone who acts, not someone who waits. This identity shift is quiet but lasting. Over time, discipline replaces motivation as the engine of progress. Effort feels calmer, steadier, and less emotional. Practical takeaway. Create one small daily practice, even 5 minutes, and protect it. Do it at the same time each day, regardless of mood. Notice how predictability calms the mind. Fear weakens when the mind learns what to expect, and strength grows through consistency rather than bursts of inspiration. With patience, discipline becomes a form of self-respect. Each completed practice reinforces trust in oneself. Fear retreats when promises are kept daily. Missed days matter less than returning without judgment. Consistency teaches forgiveness alongside strength. Over months, effort compounds quietly. The mind stops asking for excitement and accepts steady work. This acceptance creates freedom. Life feels less urgent, yet more directed. Through discipline, single-mindedness matures into a stable inner posture, that supports calm focus under pressure, without panic or hesitation in uncertain moments of life. Fear multiplies when life becomes cluttered, filled with too many choices, distractions, and expectations competing for attention. Japanese minimalism is not about aesthetics alone. It is psychological clarity. When the environment is crowded, the mind becomes crowded as well, and fear finds many places to hide. A samurai carried only what was essential. Every unnecessary object was a distraction that could cost focus in a critical moment. In the same way, mental clutter drains courage by pulling attention in multiple directions at once. Zen reflection teaches that removing the unnecessary does not reduce strength, but reveals strength already present. When excess is stripped away, what remains becomes clear and usable. In modern life, clutter appears not only in physical spaces, but in constant notifications, unfinished tasks, and unrealistic expectations. The mind tries to manage everything at once and becomes overwhelmed. Fear grows because attention is fragmented. Japanese philosophy suggests that simplicity is an act of discipline, not deprivation. It is a deliberate choice to protect focus. When fewer things demand attention, each action receives more care. This creates calm momentum instead of anxious movement. Consider a workspace filled with open tabs, messages, and reminders. Each one silently asks for attention, pulling the mind away from the present task. The body may sit still, but the mind is running. By reducing these inputs, the nervous system relaxes. Clarity returns not because problems disappear, but because attention is no longer divided. A minimalist tea room contains only what supports the ceremony. Nothing extra competes with the experience. This principle applies equally to daily routines. When commitments are simplified, fear loses fuel. Energy stops leaking into unnecessary worry. Minimalism also reduces decision fatigue. When choices are limited, action becomes easier. The samurai did not question which weapon to carry each day. The decision was already made. This allowed full presence in training. In the same way, simplifying routines frees mental energy for meaningful effort. Zen teaches that strength does not come from adding more, but from removing what weakens focus. Silence, space, and order create a stable inner environment. When the mind is not constantly reacting, fear appears smaller and more manageable. Practical takeaway: remove one unnecessary distraction today, physical or digital. Close unused tabs, silence non-essential notifications, or clear a small space. Notice how mental space creates calm focus. With practice, simplicity becomes a source of power. Attention grows sharper, effort feels lighter, and fear loses its ability to overwhelm. Over time, this clarity supports single-mindedness by keeping the mind aligned with purpose instead of scattered by excess. When life becomes simpler, courage feels more accessible because energy is no longer spent managing noise. Calm focus emerges naturally, allowing steady progress without unnecessary strain or confusion. Comfort can quietly weaken resolve. Growth requires discomfort, and Japanese philosophy does not avoid this truth. When life becomes too comfortable, the mind grows sensitive, and even small challenges begin to feel threatening. Fear increases not because danger is greater, but because tolerance has decreased. Training halls were cold, floors were hard, and practices were repetitive. Discomfort was not treated as an enemy. It was treated as a teacher shaping patience and strength. By staying with difficulty, the body and mind learned endurance. Tsunetomo observed that one who avoids discomfort becomes controlled by fear, while one who accepts it becomes free. This freedom comes from familiarity. When discomfort is expected and accepted, it loses its power to intimidate. In modern life, discomfort often appears as boredom, effort, awkwardness, or emotional unease. Many people escape these feelings immediately through distraction, comfort, or avoidance. Japanese philosophy teaches that this escape trains fear rather than dissolving it. Each time discomfort is avoided, the mind learns that it is dangerous. Each time it is faced calmly, the mind learns resilience. The The samurai did not seek suffering, but he did not run from it either. He trained under conditions that demanded presence. Through this exposure, discomfort became normal, and fear softened. Zen practice reflects the same principle. Sitting still during meditation brings physical and mental discomfort. The instruction is not to fight it or flee, but to observe it. In observation, discomfort changes. It rises, peaks, and fades. This teaches impermanence through experience rather than theory. Over time, the nervous system becomes steadier. Challenges feel manageable because they are familiar. Discomfort also sharpens focus. When conditions are easy, attention wanders. When conditions are challenging, awareness gathers. This is why growth often follows difficulty. The mind becomes stronger not by avoiding pressure, but by meeting it with calm breath and steady posture. Accepting discomfort builds trust in oneself. You learn that you can endure more than expected. This trust reduces fear in future situations. Life becomes less about protecting comfort and more about expanding capacity. Practical takeaway: when discomfort appears, do not escape immediately. Stay present and breathe. Notice the sensations without judgment. Let discomfort train your resilience. Over time, this practice rewires your response to challenge. Fear no longer signals danger, but opportunity to strengthen resolve. With repeated exposure, discomfort becomes less dramatic and more instructive. Courage grows quietly through endurance. Single-mindedness deepens as the mind learns to stay instead of retreat. In this staying, strength is built layer by layer, creating calm confidence that remains steady even when conditions are difficult, unfamiliar, or demanding, allowing purposeful action to continue without being controlled by the desire for constant comfort. Single-mindedness deepens when trust replaces control. Fear often comes from trying to manage everything mentally, imagining every possible obstacle, and attempting to predict every outcome. The mind becomes burdened by possibilities, and hesitation grows. Japanese philosophy teaches that control is often an illusion. Certainty is found in trust and disciplined action, not in manipulating every detail. Zen practice emphasizes process over results. The act itself becomes the teacher, and outcomes follow naturally. When the process is honored, the mind rests in the present, and fear no longer dominates. Musashi believed mastery emerges when one stops forcing progress and instead aligns with consistent practice. For the samurai, repetition and attention to detail were more important than immediate success. The mind learns patterns, the body internalizes movement, and skill becomes automatic. This alignment reduces anxiety because control is shifted from imagined outcomes to concrete effort. In daily life, people often fixate on results, a promotion, praise, or achievement. Anxiety rises when results feel uncertain. Japanese thought reminds us that outcomes cannot be fully controlled, but effort and presence can. Trusting the process allows courage to grow naturally. The beginner may worry about failing an exam, but if they focus on steady study, reviewing materials consistently, and practicing each problem deliberately, mastery will emerge without forcing instant success. Process-centered action also reduces mental clutter. When attention rests on each step, the mind does not spiral into what-if scenarios. Fear becomes manageable because it is anchored to something tangible. Effort, not imagination. The rhythm of repetition cultivates patience and resilience. Small, consistent steps accumulate into competence and confidence. Even when mistakes occur, they are absorbed into learning rather than magnified into panic. Practical takeaway: focus on how you do something today, not how fast or how well. Choose consistency over pressure. Notice how attention to deliberate effort changes the experience of fear. Trust that repeated, mindful practice creates progress without demanding control over outcomes. Over time, the mind internalizes this trust. Fear no longer paralyzes action because effort itself is sufficient. Single-mindedness strengthens as reliance on external certainty fades, and confidence emerges from disciplined practice. This mindset transforms challenge into manageable steps. Life's unpredictability feels less threatening when trust replaces control. The focus remains on presence, repetition, and purpose. In honoring process over result, the mind and body work in harmony, fear diminishes, and steady progress unfolds naturally. Consistent action becomes the anchor for courage, enabling clear, deliberate choices without anxiety over outcomes or speed, allowing inner strength to grow through engagement with the moment. In the end, Japanese philosophy does not seek to eliminate fear. It seeks to transform the relationship with it, to see fear not as an enemy, but as a guide. Fear becomes a signal of importance, a marker that attention is needed, rather than a command to retreat. Single-mindedness teaches that fear loses power when attention stays anchored to purpose. When the mind is detached from ego, outcomes, and permanence, fear no longer dominates. It becomes clarity. The warrior walks forward not because fear is gone, but because purpose is stronger. Each step taken in alignment with intention diminishes the grip of anxiety, because energy is focused on action rather than worry. Life is full of moments that challenge courage. Yet Japanese thought emphasizes that fear itself is part of the journey. It signals the edges of comfort and points to areas where growth is waiting. A samurai stepping into battle did not mistake fear for weakness. He recognized it as presence sharpening awareness, heightening focus, and confirming that the action mattered. Detachment from result and ego allows the mind to move through fear without being paralyzed by it. Each decision, each motion is executed with attention, and fear becomes a companion rather than a tyrant. Even small challenges in daily life can be approached this way. Speaking a difficult truth, pursuing a creative endeavor, or embracing a personal change can provoke fear. When these moments are met with steady attention to purpose, courage is discovered within, not forced externally. Final reflection. When you release attachment, fear no longer blocks your path, it sharpens it. Focus becomes calm, and action becomes honest. Strength becomes quiet, steady, and dependable. In that quiet focus, you realize that courage was never something to acquire or fabricate. It was something to uncover within yourself. Through detachment and consistent practice, clarity and resilience grow, and the mind learns that fear signals life being lived fully rather than danger to be avoided. Each moment of fear met with intention becomes a lesson, a chance to cultivate presence and inner strength. The transformation is subtle but profound. What once felt paralyzing becomes instructive, and what once demanded control becomes manageable. In embracing this philosophy, fear is no longer a barrier, but a teacher. Single-mindedness ensures that energy is directed toward meaningful effort. Over time, the accumulation of disciplined attention, calm acceptance, and courageous action creates a foundation of strength that persists through uncertainty. Life is experienced more fully, decisions are made more clearly, and purpose guides movement without hesitation. Courage is revealed not as absence of fear, but as mastery of attention, and the path forward becomes luminous through the very challenges that once intimidated the heart.